So tell me what you understand between those two things, because there is like a free will part of it, and then there's a soul contract part of it. So do you understand very well how we are able to kind of cross those lines and influence with our thoughts what you just described?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Life is always surprising me. What I have seen in my own experience and from decades of doing readings and, really getting into people's energy and their experiences, I believe that some things in our life are destiny and there's not a darn thing we can do about it. It's going to happen. And you can manifest and do goal books and vision boards and say your affirmations, but it's going to happen, whatever that it is. And I think other things are 100% in our free will. The key really is understanding when you're in a destined moment and when you're in a free will moment. I think that's really hard. I think we have to work to be really cognizant of our energy and our emotions and our thoughts on a daily level.
There's a reason you found this video. These stories awaken something ancient inside us. Hit subscribe and stay on the path with us. My guest today is Samantha Fey, who came into this earthly incarnation awake and had many, many medium experiences with spirit as a child. And then at the age of 30, she had an incredible awakening experience. And since then, she has been using her gifts for all kinds of talents. She understands astral travel. She has worked with the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and she does many, many things. And we're going to dive in deep and have a beautiful conversation that I'm really excited about. So, Samantha, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. So excited to talk to you.
Well, I love it when I get connected between people that I've already had on the show. And I got connected to you through Jacob Cooper, who had such a beautiful NDE when he was 8 years old. So I always know when I have a guest that is connected through somebody else that I adore, that it's going to be a great conversation. And we had so much fun talking in our kind of our pre-talk that this is going to be really fun. But I'm super curious because I have not heard this story. You said that you had an incredible experience that woke you up spiritually when you were about 30. So, would you like to share that in any way you feel like sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised in a very traditional, normal family, very, very Catholic. I went to Catholic school. We went to mass on Sunday, and I did see spirits and have all those, experiences that people talk about who are born into this world, kind of awake, as you said. But I always pushed it down. I thought it would make me weird and different, and I would tell my parents about all the things I saw, and they were like, "Oh, Samantha, you have such a great imagination." So I just kind of like, tamped it all down. And I went to college and I went to grad school and I became a teacher. I was teaching English at a local college and I was married and I had little kids and I was just very happy. I just felt like, I did it. I even had the white picket fence and the two dogs. So I was like, everything was going great in my life. And one day I walked into my office, and my office, I was obviously a part of the English department, but I was the newest hire. So my office was down in the basement. No one could ever find me. And I went into my office one day for work, and there was a crystal on my desk. There was a jasper that I didn't know. I didn't know anything about crystals. And my desk was always locked, and my office was always locked. My desk was always clean, and there was just this kidney-shaped orange stone on my desk, and I was like, what is this? Now, at the same time, I was teaching creative writing, and I had a student who was kind of stalking me. He would write really creepy stories about, finding my house and things he was going to do, and it was really terrifying. I was married to a police officer at the time, and he would often come to class like in uniform just to kind of let this guy know. And it was just, I was praying about it. I was really worried about it. So anyway, I find this stone and I go up to the geology professor who we all loved and we all called him Dr. Rocks. And I said, "Hey, Dr. Rocks, I found this stone on my desk. What is it? Like, where did it come from? Did you put it there?" And he said, "No." And he looked at it and he said, "Wow, that's a beautiful piece of jasper." never heard of jasper. And I said, okay, what is it? And he said, well, he said, who do you need protection from? And I was like, how can a rock protect me? Like, what are you talking about, Dr. Rocks? And so I told him about the student who was kind of harassing and stalking me. And he said, well, carry that jasper with you. And I was like, I remember looking at the rock going like, how are you going to protect me? And but I really loved Dr. Rocks and I respected him. So I just carried it in my purse or my pocket. And about a week or two later, the student was arrested on unrelated charges and I never saw him again. And suddenly I was fascinated by crystals and stones and rocks and minerals and what they could do for me. So I started taking classes all over my area from anyone who would be teaching about crystals. That led me to Reiki, which really led me to start meditating again. And as I started working with crystals and doing Reiki and meditating, my psychic stuff started popping open again. And I was like, oh no, like here I am. I'm normal. I've got this great, simple life. Do not start up again. And I started having dreams that would come true. I dreamt that a friend of mine who'd been struggling to get pregnant for years. I dreamt that she was pregnant and she was like, I wish that was true. And then, of course, she did get pregnant a couple of weeks later. And then, as I said, I was married to a police officer and I kept having dreams over and over and over again in the spring of 2005 that he was getting shot in the neck. And, as a big, strong police officer, I would say to him, you've got to wear your bulletproof vest. Like, I keep having this dream. I bought him an Archangel Michael medallion. I had it blessed by our priest. I was like, please wear this every day. And he was like, I'm fine. He basically said he was bulletproof. And about a month or two after those dreams started, he was shot in the neck, exactly as I saw it. And I remember I had told everyone about my dreams, and I was sitting in the little ICU waiting room that night. It was, an awful traumatic night. And my sisters were there with me, and my best friends were there with me, and they all kept saying, Samantha, you saw this, you saw this. And I I felt guilty, I really did. I felt like I could have done something. If I had listened to my intuition, maybe I could have changed it. If I had just forced him to stay home that night, maybe I could have shifted it. And then the nurse came to give me an update, and she handed me his necklace and his wedding ring, and the necklace was covered in his blood. And I was just so angry. Like, what happened? Like, what happened? I'm such a good person and I go to mass every Sunday. So I excused myself and I went to the hospital chapel and I just knelt in front of that altar and I said, God, I don't know what you want me to do with these dreams that keep happening and these psychic experiences, but whatever you want from me, I will do. But you have to make that man live. And at the time, the doctors had told me he would not live. I mean, our priest, Monsignor Matt, was already heading to the hospital to give him last rites, but miraculously, he did live. It was a hard road to recovery, but he did live. And I remember when he came home at the end of that summer, I remember thinking, uh-oh, I kind of made a bargain with God. I need to do something about this. So I started taking intuitive development classes, and that led me on this whole wonderful path.
Samantha, wow. I haven't heard a story like that in a long time. That is absolutely incredible. People who have prophetic dreams are just, it's got to be such like a deja vu life that you're having because you have the inkling, you're seeing things you don't want to believe, you don't want them to come true. So I actually think this is the perfect segue to talk about manifesting because you and I had a conversation about manifesting and you've done some courses, I think, about manifesting, right? And you've been teaching some things. And we had a really cool conversation because there are manifests that you can do for yourself. And then you mentioned that you cannot manifest for somebody else. And so I think it's interesting that you're having dreams about people outside of yourself. And I mean, call it manifestation, call it protection, call it whatever, your will on it. you weren't able to, I mean, maybe you saved him in some way. I don't know if you ever got any clarification about that, but I just would love to hear what you have to say now about manifestation because I feel like it ties into that a little bit.
Yeah, I've luckily I've been a really good manifester my whole life, and so I've really studied this and done the research, and I have been creating goal books and vision boards since I was 24 years old, and I've
Well,
had some
before you tell
phenomenal.
about it, you said that you did a bunch of research. What do you mean you did a bunch of research?
Oh my gosh. So I've read everything by Florence Scovel Shinn and Emanuel
Never heard of her.
Swedenborg, and
Okay. Yes.
I like to go back to the old stuff. There's a great book by Theron Q. Dumont called The Power of Concentration. And
Hmm.
I think it was written in the 1930s, and he talks a lot about how if you can focus your mind and focus your thoughts and add visualization to that, then you really can manifest some amazing things. But what I have found so fascinating, so I wrote a book called Heavenly Alliance, and it's how to manifest with the help of your guides and your angels and your loved ones on the other side. So I write and teach about this, but I also experience it myself. And I think that we can manifest what we want. However, there's a comma there, there's a but there, because before we come to this earth, we have created this soul plan. And sometimes there are difficulties that we have put into that soul plan. So, for example, dealing with my ex husband's shooting, that was a life changing event, not only for him, but for my whole family. I mean, he did not wake up from that coma the same person he was before, and so that was awfully difficult and challenging to go through, and I feel as though I was able to manifest, or at least help manifest, his survival of that issue. But I would have said to you, like, I did not put that in my soul plan, because who would put that in their soul plan? But of course, in hindsight, I see how much we've grown as a family, how much he's been able to grow and learn, how much I have. And so, looking back at things I've tried to manifest and haven't, you often see that, oh, this is a part of my soul plan. And so, there's this, I call it the divine dance, where you have to state your needs and wants and desires as clearly as you can to the universe. But you also have to do that with an expectation of surrender, where sometimes, yeah, whatever you want to manifest is going to happen exactly as you want, but other things are not going to happen because either they're not part of your soul plan, or it's not the right time, or it can also be that someone connected to you is manifesting the opposite intent in a stronger energy field. And if you don't mind, I'll give you a quick example.
Oh, of course I don't mind. This is so fascinating. I'm on the edge of my seat.
So I had a friend, and she was, married, and her husband had this really, really great job, but he hated his job. He was working 60, 70 hours a week, traveling all of the time. And he just quit his job and decided to start this new company, this new business. And she was so mad. And I don't blame her. The way he went about it was really rough. He didn't really discuss it with her. And they also had really good health benefits. And, so a lot of stuff went when he made this big decision. But she would say to me every day, it's going to fail. I know his business is going to fail. It's going to blow up in his face, and he's going to see how stupid this decision was. And I kept saying to her, don't say that, because, you're going to manifest that. I think we forget that we can manifest the negative just as easily as we can manifest the positive. So while her husband was really working hard and planning for this business to succeed, I was worried that she was saying that to anyone who would listen. It's going to fail, it's going to fail, and that'll show him. And guess what, Lori? It failed. And
Wow.
so
I
I think,
actually thought maybe you were going to say the opposite, that his will and wanting it to survive was stronger than hers wanting it to fail.
no, he went into that business with hope. And I think there's a very big difference between having hope and having a goal and a very confident intention. He went
Mm-hmm.
in there hoping it would work out. She went in there 100% positive it was going to fail. And so I,
Wow.
I just think
I
that's
mean, I guess they're not
important.
together anymore.
No, they're not. Unfortunately, no. No.
So if we're able, so it's interesting because I think that thoughts are powerful. I so agree with you, but we also have free will. And I thought, I mean, I know that in the non-spiritual, so in the avatar where we are having our human experience in this physical plane, I we can do whatever we want and put our will on other people. People take things from people, beat them up, love them. I mean, there are all kinds of things, right? We put our will on other people in lots of different ways. But from a spiritual perspective, I thought that there were some limitations on what we could do with the free will, because that can't be violated if you've set it so that, it can't be violated by the spiritual realm. So tell me what you understand between those two things, because there is like a free will part of it, and then there's a soul contract part of it. So do you understand very well how we are able to kind of cross those lines and influence with our thoughts what you just described?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Life is always surprising me. What I have seen in my own experience and from decades of doing readings and, really getting into people's energy and their experiences, I believe that some things in our life are destiny and there's not a darn thing we can do about it. It's going to happen. And you can manifest and do goal books and vision boards and say your affirmations, but it's going to happen, whatever that it is. And I think other things are 100% in our free will. The key really is understanding when you're in a destined moment and when you're in a free will moment. I think that's really hard. I think we have to work to be really cognizant of our energy and our emotions and our thoughts on a daily level. For example, my ex-husband's shooting, to me, that was completely destined. Everything lined up for him to be alone at that specific moment, at that specific location when he encountered that criminal, and it was complete destiny. But everything that transpired to help him survive that night was also destiny, you know? And so I think if you look back at certain things in your life that have really, I call them before and after moments, those are usually the destined times. You can usually see how, oh, that was happening no matter what I did. Now, we always have free will with how we react to what happens to us. But I also think that there are other things in our life that are completely up to us and how we are going to enact them. Sometimes when I'm tuning into people's energy, I can get a sense of their soul purpose. And it's not so much like, Laurie, your soul purpose is to do this amazing YouTube channel. It's not that specific. But I'll get, like, for example, one of my friends, when she found out I was intuitive and doing all of this stuff, she was like, read me, read me. And I really picked up that her main purpose was to be a motivator. And at the time, she was a stay at home mom. And she was like, I'm motivating my 2 and 3-year-old. Like, she was like, what do you mean? And I said, I don't know, but whatever you do with your life, you're going to be motivating others. And she ended up going into real estate. And she said, well, I'm motivating people to buy houses, but the national company that she worked with saw her talent and they plucked her out, and she now travels the country going to all those different franchises to motivate realtors to stay on their path and to stay focused. And I thought, okay, now she had a choice. I mean, she could have been motivating people in a bunch of other different areas, but I do feel that we all have a soul plan that includes a soul purpose, and no matter what we choose to do or manifest, we're going to kind of fall back to that center of our true talents.
Mm. When we're talking about manifestation, I love that you brought up some of these older books. Have you ever read a book called Three Magic Words?
Yes,
That's one of my all-time favorites.
I love the
There's
cover.
Yes, there's so many great little gems in that book that are super helpful for manifestation. But one of the things that I feel like I've uncovered over time, I'd love for you to speak to this and hear your thoughts about it, is that in order to manifest, it's not just, I like that non-attachment. I think you used a different word for it, which was just not having a preconceived notion about it, but non-attachment. So you manifest, but you don't just keep on going, mom, mom, mom. It's like you've got to get to the point where you've asked for it. You know that you've asked for it, you let it go, and you trust now because you have to see it as if it's already happened. So you can't keep going, hey, 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 because then you're not acting as you've seen it already happened. But I think the big key that I felt the secret missed is that in order to manifest, I believe you have to put a high vibrational emotion around that also. So it could be authenticity, it could be love, it could be gratitude, it could be wholeness, but you have to have an emotional component that you're also applying. Does that resonate and line up with things that you studied?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's always that emotion that really motivates that goal to get out into the universe. And it has to be in alignment with really who we are as well. And it has to be in alignment with our timeline. I've noticed that if I want something, I will manifest it, right? But if I really, really, really want something, I won't manifest it. So there has to be a balance with that emotion. So I'll give you an example. I have been writing my whole adult life, or really my whole life. And I was a reporter and I did a bunch of freelance writing and I had my own column, but I wanted to get a book out there. And throughout my 30s, I kept getting no's, 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 no's. I got really far. I got an agent. I got, really, really close, but I didn't get to that publication. And I knew it was because I wanted it so much. I was like Lenny from Of Mice and Men, like just petting that kitten way too hard. Do you remember that scene?
I didn't watch that. Sorry.
Okay,
But
no,
I'm sure
it's
a lot of
okay.
people watching got the reference.
I wanted it so much, I was squeezing the life out of that goal. And it wasn't until I got into my 40s where I was like, you know what? I just love to write, and I'm going to write no matter what. Like whether I get published in a traditional way or I don't, I'm never going to stop writing. And I let go of that. I have to have this goal. And that's when I manifested the contract.
I think there is so much truth and power in what you said because I'm going through things in my head like really quickly as you said that. I feel like I'm really good at manifesting also, and I've had that ability for a very, very long time. I remember in my 20s taking a vision board and going into a magazine and writing out all these things and gluing them on there. And I knew that I had checked off a couple of boxes like my taking my kids to Disney. We wanted a new computer, and my ex-husband wanted a truck. And I remember we had all those things, but then something happened where that whole vision board fell in between my desk and my file cabinet. And it wasn't until I moved it to redo the floor that I found it. And I took it out, and every single thing had been accomplished. Every single thing. A log cabin, which we ultimately built, a job with a very specific salary on it. Like there were so many things. And so I realized the power of that a long time ago. But recently, I really, really, really badly wanted to sell my house. I jumped and bought another downsized house to live in, and I'm doing all the manifesting things I know how to do. And I felt like there was a desperation out of it, and it wasn't manifesting. It wasn't manifesting. And it wasn't until I decided, all right, I'm leaving for the summer. I've got to pull all my staged furniture into my new house. And I set my son up to come that weekend. And 2 days before he got here, the house went under contract. And I feel like it was because it's like when you're trying to get pregnant and you're trying and you're trying and you finally are like, we're going to adopt. And then the people get pregnant. I felt like it was a little bit that. And I was like, I think I was actually holding my own self back.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such a great metaphor too, because that's exactly what it is. We can hold ourselves back. I love Wayne Dyer has this quote where he says the universe is an ocean and most of us come to it with a teaspoon. And we should be coming to it with buckets, and it's so, so true. So one thing I always teach students, I love vision boards. I've done vision boards. I'm a big fan of a goal book. So instead of like a whole board with all of your pictures on it, I like to do a goal book. So
What's a goal book?
every page has a picture of your goal, and then you state
Okay.
your goal in the present tense, right? So let's say
Okay.
let's say one of your goals is I successfully and easily graduate from nursing school. Let's say you're in nursing school. So you would find a picture of yourself, and you would put like a little graduation cap on you, or you could cut out a picture of someone walking across a graduation stage. That's fine. But you have a picture that goes along with your goal, and it always has to be in the present tense. And so I always tell people to do 5 to 7 goals for that year, things that you
Okay.
want to happen within that year. But every page gets its own goal. So that every night before you go to bed, you flip through that goal book because you're priming your subconscious as you fall asleep to marinate in that
Mm.
energy of what it is you're trying to manifest. However, the last page of your goal book should say this or something better, thank you. Because I
Oh,
feel
I
so
love the
strongly,
something better.
yeah, because we limit ourselves. We do it all the time. My friend and I manifest a lot of stuff together. Like I'll intend for her to get something and she'll intend for me. So I think there's a lot of power in that. Lynn McTaggart talks about that a lot. And I remember we decided to increase our income significantly. So we both were like, okay, each month we're going to earn this amount. And we manifested it really quickly. And we were like, well, darn it, why didn't we pick a higher number? Because we were
Right.
limiting ourselves.
Right. Well, I think that that's just a condition of we are conditioned to think that things that we really want and that have value take a long time to earn.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
almost
exactly.
reprogramming.
Yeah. Yeah. But we need to remind ourselves that, we are all here for a very special, beautiful, wonderful purpose. And we don't serve anyone by playing small.
Mm. That's a really good one. Since you mentioned subconscious, sleeping, reading stuff before you go to bed, I think this is a great place to dip into astral travel. So, how in the world did you get into this? And I would love to hear the first time that you actually were like, oh my gosh, I just astral traveled.
Well, I can't tell you the first time because I feel like I've done it my whole life.
Oh,
I always
interesting.
have dreams like that, and it's not for me. I have never consciously astral traveled, and I think that's really important. I have studied Robert Monroe and Sylvan Muldoon, and so many famous astral travelers. I hope to study at the Monroe Institute one day, but I always astral travel in my dreams. And I started talking about it on my podcast, Psychic Teachers, and I called myself a night worker because what would happen is I would travel to different locations and I would be giving readings or helping people cross over or helping people realize that they had died and needed to go through the light. But I felt as though I was physically there with my soul, not my body, obviously, but I felt like I was actually there. And so that's why I called myself a night worker because I would wake up almost more tired than when I had gone to bed. And so as I started sharing these experiences on my podcast, I kept getting emails from people who had similar experiences. So that led me to really study this. And that's how I wrote my first book, The Awake Dreamer. And there are so many famous dream astral travelers, Emanuel Swedenborg, for one, Carl Jung, and Edgar Cayce, who we talked about, who, of course, did most of his compelling, amazing work in the dream state. But I really do believe that when we sleep, our body does rest. But I think our soul travels. And I think that we can go visit people here on earth. Think we can visit loved ones on the other side. I think we convene with our guides and go over our soul plan.
Change
There's,
it,
yeah, change it,
tweak
amend
it.
it, complain about it.
That too.
Um, there's a wonderful story I found in a children's book I used to read for my children, and it's supposedly a quote unquote true old legend that God was saying good luck to all these souls who are getting ready to come to earth. And as she's walking down the line saying goodbye, the souls are like, no, we don't want to go, we're going to miss you. And God says to them, oh, don't worry, every night when you dream your soul travels back here and we can visit. And I just love that idea, and I have found that to be incredibly true.
Well, I think I can put a little bit of science in it. So Dr. Rick Straussman studied DMT for, I don't know, 25 years. He wrote a book, I think it's called The God Molecule. And one of the things that they know about DMT is that that's naturally produced in the pineal gland. They think it's produced it a couple of times. So when you're born, soul enters the body. When you die, soul is released, or when you have a traumatic or near-death experience and you temporarily leave the body. But I think that there are minuscule amounts that are released when we sleep that allows the body to do just what you're talking about, to travel, to astral travel. You're still corded, you're still connected. But I wanted to ask you about the dream part. Do you have a component then of that dream that is lucid? Because where you have the ability to control it, because you're talking about two abilities in dreaming. You're talking about lucid dreaming and astral. And I wondered if that just comes naturally or if the lucid came before or vice versa.
Yeah, for me, the lucid came naturally and it's a component of the astral travel. Now, if you look at, for example, Stephen LaBerge's work, Stanford professor, he's done phenomenal research into lucid dreaming, and you can train yourself to lucid dream. And a lot of the lucid dream experiences that people who will do that training, like the wake back to bed method, is the most popular, where you set your alarm to wake you up about 2 to 3 hours before you normally do, because we tend to do most of our dreaming in that last third segment of our dream cycle. And that is said to help induce more lucid dreaming. Those tend to be a lot of metaphorical type dreams. The experiences that I'm really interested in and that I try to document and collect are people who are having a dream, but they know they're dreaming and they know that something mystical and magical is happening. So, for example, when I have dreams of helping people to cross over, I'm always aware of my guide standing behind me. I never see him, but I do hear him, and he's walking me through how to do it. I'm aware that I'm dreaming, I'm aware that my body is asleep, but I'm also aware that I have a very important job to do. And what I found interesting when I was doing research on this, there's a fascinating letter that Saint Augustine wrote. He was friends with a physician, and the two of them were arguing about life after death. And these letters are still available. You can Google them and find them. And of course, St. Augustine believed in life after death, but his physician friend really did not. And so St. Augustine was like, "Well, I'll pray for you." And then his physician friend had a dream that an angel visited him. And the angel said to him, "Look behind you. What do you see?" And the doctor looks behind him and he sees himself sleeping in bed. And the angel says, "Your eyes are closed, and yet you see me. With what eyes are you seeing me?" And the doctor was like, I don't know. And he said, "You're seeing me with your soul's eyes. Never doubt again." And so
Wow.
that angel actually came back to him. But that's a letter that we have that's been, well documented and archived. That's centuries old. So this has been happening forever. And I think if we create a safe place for people to talk about it, then we can see really amazing miracles come from these experiences. They can bring us comfort, they can bring us healing, they can also remind us of, really who we are and why we're here. One of the most life-changing dreams I ever had um, was back in 2012. My mother-in-law had passed away in 2007, and we were very, very close. She was like another mother to me. And in 2012, I had this dream where I woke up in my bedroom, which often happens in a lucid dream. You're in familiar surroundings. And I knew I was dreaming, and I heard this big crash in my living room. And so I go rushing out to see what it is, and there's my mother-in-law who's been on the other side for 5 years. And I said, "Maggie, oh my gosh, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Hold my hands. I don't have much time." And so I held her hands and I helped her up. And I said, "Why don't you have much time?" And she said, "Well, when they taught me how to enter your dreams, they didn't tell me how much energy it would take. So I don't have much time, but you need to know that you're going to be okay. It means nothing. Do you hear me, darling? It means nothing. You're going to be okay. And tell Grace congratulations." And then poof, I woke up and I was back in bed. And
Did it
again,
feel not like a dream? Did it feel like it was a real conversation?
yes, I could feel the softness of her hands. I mean, I felt as though she was in my living room. And so I woke up back in my bed, and I woke up my former husband, and I was like, I think your mom just visited me. And so we were going over like what was she trying to tell me? It means nothing. You're going to be okay. Everything was okay in my life. So we really couldn't figure it out. And he said, well, maybe it was just a dream. And well, so I said, well, call your sister, because that she mentioned Grace, her granddaughter, who was her daughter's daughter. So my ex-husband calls his sister, and it turned out that Grace had made the junior Olympic ski team. And we did not know that. And so I remember I heard my former husband say, well, tell her mom says congratulations too. So we were like, what does this mean? That night, unfortunately, I was in the shower and I found a lump in my breast, and went to the doctor the very next morning and discovered I had breast cancer. Long, year journey of surgeries and whatnot, but I was okay. And if I didn't have that dream at the time, I had three children. My youngest was five. They were 5, 7, and 8.5. I don't know how I would have gotten through that, to be honest with you, if I didn't have that dream experience of my beloved mother-in-law telling me it means nothing, you're going to be okay. That was like my mantra that whole year. And, many, many years ago, and I've been fine ever since. So I think these dreams can be incredibly impactful to our life journey if we open ourselves up to them.
It was nothing, darling.
Yeah, it means nothing.
So this is a great place to go to the sleeping prophet. So Edgar Cayce was probably the very first spiritual teacher that I ever had. I found a book of his a very, very long time ago, and I was very fascinated because he had an eighth grade education. He would meet with these people for whatever reason. When I found this, I was working at IBM, and he would meet with all these people who worked at IBM. I don't know why. And he would give them these messages, but it would be very, very specific. He would know nothing about some type of a disease state. He would name the disease state. He would tell the people exactly what remedy they needed. And then the people would write these elaborate letters back to him telling him how he was absolutely correct. And he did this from a regressed state with his assistant, who would record every single one of these sessions. And there's a foundation, the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and somehow you work with him or work with that foundation. So tell me a little bit about that experience and what you've learned from doing that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to visit. It's called the Edgar Cayce ARE. It's in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's where he was told to start this foundation, this company, this organization that helps train people in the work that he was able to do. And you can see, he's called the sleeping prophet, as you said, and the actual bed that he laid on is in the ARE. And so you can go there, you can read all the readings he did. It's just a beautiful organization run by some wonderful people that are continuing the work that he did. You can take classes, you can study his readings, they have the most amazing library there. There's a labyrinth there. It's absolutely a beautiful place that he built based on what his guides told him. What I find so sad about Edgar Cayce, so when he started this work, he was very, very Christian. And so it scared him, and it scared his wife. And so he never took credit for any of it. He always gave the credit to God. And he always said that he did not remember what came through in the readings. And not only would he give health readings, he would give what we would call today psychic readings, but he also gave a lot of predictive readings. I mean, he talked about the ancient city, the legendary city of Atlantis being found in Bimini Road in the Bahamas, and everyone laughed at it. And then, of course,
I
that,
didn't know that he said something about Bimini Road.
yeah, yeah. decades
Wow.
before we actually found Bimini Road. So a lot of his
Wow.
predictions have come true. The one I can't wait to hear if it ever comes true, he says that there's something mystical buried underneath the Sphinx in Egypt.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
just there in February, and that
Oh,
Sphinx
wow.
is so cool in person. I was just amazing to see it in person.
Oh, I bet so. That's fantastic. Wow. So, yes, he would also get messages towards the end of his life to stop doing as many readings as he was doing because it was
Energy,
draining his
right?
energy.
Yeah.
And he did not listen and he passed away way too young.
Wow. So what do you do with them?
So I go there a couple of times a year and I present on really whatever they tell me to present. I've been able to teach manifesting there. I've been able to teach about dream experiences. I've been able to talk about psychic development. And so it's just a great place because they have classes year round. They have conferences, retreats, and they get some fantastic facilitators and teachers to work. And just their main goal is to carry on his message, which is that we all have this ability. We can all tap into our innate psychic gifts, and we just have to learn how to hone it and study it and trust it.
So it's interesting that you've tapped into some of these resources that have been around and have been in our collective for well over 100 years, if they were, early 1900s, 1800s, et cetera. Why do you think that this information is really coming into the collective, into the mainstream now, where it didn't all those many years ago? They were considered fringe topics, like, charlatans, people didn't believe it. I don't know if religion played more of a part in it. Why do you think now is the time that these are starting to become more focused,
Yeah, yeah, and accepted. Well,
accepted?
I
Yeah.
really believe that we do exist in the field of the collective conscious. You know, if you study the Princeton eggs, the experiment they did where they put the random number generators all around the world, and they found that when big events hit the world, like the tsunami or even Princess Diana dying, of course, 9/11, these random number generators that were positioned all around the world suddenly spit out the same pattern that was not random, which shows that we're all plugged into this collective energy together. And I think that we all have to work really hard as a collective to lift and raise our vibration and awaken our consciousness. And I think it is happening. I know people, I get emails from people all the time saying, you know, what's happening with the world right now? There's so much fear, there's so much unrest, there's so much negativity. And I get that. I see it. I read too. But I also trust history and I trust what we've seen. And I think as a whole, we really are growing as a collective of a bunch of beautiful souls on this earth. There's a fabulous book called Better Angels of Our Nature, written by a really well-regarded historian, and he's been able to prove that we live in the most peaceful time in all of recorded history
Right now, even though it seems like there's unrest
right
in the
now.
world.
Right now. And if you look at the news, I mean, what sells? You know,
Of
fear,
course, and I
negativity
think
sells.
it's such a non-reflection of what is really happening, because we only highlight the things that are fearful and sell ads.
Yeah. And super, and there is a lot of there is, I get it. I'm not dismissing that or discounting that at all. I am just saying, as a whole, I do think that we are all awakening even more every single day because of the overall peace that exists, that we have time to actually process and ponder these things. And so I think as a collective, we're becoming okay with some of the weird stuff that you and I are talking about today. I mean, who would ever think we would see a hint of disclosure about UFOs? When that New York Times article came out about the Tic Tac videos, I thought, wow, this is an example of the collective waking up.
I'm going to ask you this question. I haven't really asked anybody a question like this before, but I feel like I'm being drawn to or directed to ask you this. What is AI playing in the whole role of this? Do you know anything about it? Have you looked into this? And there's just got to be a reason I'm asking you this question.
I don't know. I've just started working with AI a little bit myself just so I can understand what it is. And I think it's like anything in the world. You know, if you have a knife, you could use it to cut your steak and dice up your onions and make a nice dinner, or you could use it to harm someone, right? I think we can use AI for negative means, but I also think we can use it for positive means. And what I'm hoping it does is alleviate some of the work that we all have to do so that we can have more time to really just have fun and reflect and go within and connect back to our spirituality. You know, I think about when my parents were not growing up, but when they were young adults and raising families, I think about how much fun they had and how much connection they had. I mean, my parents were constantly going to dinner parties and cocktail events and having people over to play bridge and, going here to do this sport or that sport. And I have had a lot of that too, but I don't know. I just feels like as we go through these recent decades, we're getting more and more and more disconnected from each other. And I think it's because of work and technology. I know when my dad used to come home on a Friday, there was no computer to check. I don't even know if his boss had his home phone number. He worked hard Monday to Friday, but Friday to Sunday was, all his. That's a bygone era. We don't have that. People have access to me 24/7. And I allow it. I'm always checking my email, I'm checking my DMs, all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
so I think that my hope is that AI is going to alleviate some of that for us so that
Mm.
we can have time to just exhale and really get back to what it is that makes us feel connected to our sense of spirit. And I'm a big advocate, Lord. I don't care what it is. If it's baking brownies and that makes you breathe and exhale and think and process, then you bake brownies. If it's, going for a walk or meditating, that's great. But if it's just snuggling up on a couch with a good book, whatever it is we need that just makes us feel as though we can just calm down our nervous system and slow down and reconnect with who we are and what really brings us joy. And to be honest, I'm hopeful that AI is going to give us the chance to have more of those opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. I think so too. Well, I would imagine that people who are watching right now are like, where can I find Samantha? How can I work with her? She seems like she has some really interesting ideas. So, how can people find you?
Well, thank you. I'm at samanthafey.com and I host two podcasts, Psychic Teachers and Enlightened Empaths. We have new episodes every single week. We've been on air for 15 years, so there's a lot of archives for people to explore. And this summer, I'm teaching a Be Your Own Psychic class and a mediumship class. And in those classes, I'm all about community. So not only do I teach you how to awaken to your intuitive development and really start to hone it and become comfortable with it, but you're also partnered up with different students from class each week to practice exercises so that you can really grow in confidence. And I'd love to have people join me for one or both of those classes.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to ask you if people tell you that you remind them of Jennifer Love Hewitt.
No, I've never gotten that, but I've
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 been
loved that show.
I've been thinking
Ghost
it the whole
Whisperer.
time you were talking. Just it's your expressions, your cadence. It just you remind me of her a lot.
Oh wow. Did you watch Ghost Whisperer?
I didn't.
Oh, it was a good show. You should have Marianne Winkowski on. It was inspired by her and her work.
Do you know her?
I've had her on my show a couple of times. She's
Oh,
awesome.
we'll
She
have to talk about how I can connect with her. I would
yeah,
love
she's
that. Sounds like
great.
a great
She's
idea.
great.
Well, Samantha, I knew from the moment I met you that I was going to love this conversation, and it did not disappoint. But really, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for your research, for what you're doing, for the classes and the kind of the education standpoint that you're coming at to help wake up the collective consciousness because it is so needed right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on and for the work you do. And thank you for showing me your new puppy.
Oh, should everybody see my new puppy? She's
Yes,
sleeping right
everyone
now.
should.
Hold on, I'll let everybody see my new puppy.
It's absolutely adorable. Let's
She's
see.
sleepy, but she's sleepy. She's at least not biting me in the face at the moment. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.